Cannabis Common Sense, the show that tells the truth about marijuana and the politics behind its prohibition.
He was to Kentucky politics what Madonna and Prince are to music, what Michael and Pele were to sports, those you know by just one name. Tonight, ABC 36 political reporter Greg Stottlemyre has a look back at a man who never quit trying to win public office. We all knew him simply as Gatewood.
Hello, folks. He never quit trying. Ta-ta. A lovable loser who made 5 runs for governor.
Hello, dear. My name is Gatewood Galbraith. I'm an independent candidate for governor this November.
His last this past fall.
I'd like you to take a piece of my material if you would.
Thank you.
Yes, indeed. Yeah. If you like what you see, tell your friends. Of course, if you don't like it, just hush up about it, would you?
Yes, indeedy. He was one of a kind. Like a cat, he had 9 lives, 9 campaigns.
Perennial candidate. Kentucky's got perennial problems. If the people had beaten me the first time had solved the problems, I wouldn't have had to run again. But they didn't, and they haven't, and they can't.
With Willie Nelson in tow, Gatewood made his first run for the state's top office in 1991.
I like the guy. Whether you want him as your governor or not, that's for you to say.
He was just the pro-pot candidate back then.
And these are not the kind of people who punch holes in your walls like people who drink alcohol. These people are going to turn on TV and order room service.
By 99,
You won't have to pee in a cup to hold a job.
he was the Reform Party's pick, with Jesse Ventura's political advisor helping him.
We stand on our allegations.
It would turn out to be his best finish. He received more than 15% of the vote in a 4-person race won by Paul Patton.
I hadn't had a thumbs down yet.
We watched him run 9 races in 29 years, and every time
This is the most efficient vote-getting process in the world.
it was classic Gatewood.
I do, dear. Good to see you.
He ran for Congress back-to-back in 2000.
Get a photographer. Get a picture of that, would you?
In 2002,
Bless your heart, dear.
he said he was done after the 2002 election. But there he was the next year, running for Attorney General.
Literally, I was drafted into this race. And
Gatewood was a soundbite machine.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate it. Get your friends out there.
I'll never forget that early May Day I spent with him in 2007 while he was running in the Democratic primary for governor.
Thank you, dear. I love you all, too.
A street corner charmer
Kentucky's going to be a fun place to live when I'm governor.
who raised Kentucky's conscience.
You know, we cannot have that. That's the partisanship that's killing us.
Engaging and intelligent, but also
Right here in my hand.
just wacky enough to never be taken seriously by the mainstream. This was the time he was arrested during Lexington's 4th of July parade. Yes, he was an independent cuss, but Gatewood,
Let's just head down this way, folks.
Kentucky will miss you.
You were always on my mind.
I didn't realize I was going to be speaking to a group this afternoon, or I would have put my governor's clothes on. I'm a criminal defense attorney from Lexington, Kentucky.
Been practicing law for 30 years, been protecting the rights of the marijuana smoker since that time. I ran in 1983 for Commissioner of Agriculture of Marijuana on a legal marijuana ticket. Let me tell you, in 1983, that didn't go over too damn hot. I said, Galbraith, how do you expect to win? I said, well, there's more marijuana smokers than there are Republicans in the state. If I can just get them to the polls, we can do that. Since ran in 91 and 95 for governor, ran in 99 as the Reform Party candidate for governor, spent $20,000 and got 15.3% of the vote as a third party. In Kentucky, that was pretty phenomenal. Ran as an independent for Congress in 2002, got 27% of the vote as an independent on a $20,000 budget. You know, so I'm running this time as an independent for governor of the state of Kentucky. And let me tell you, I was mighty impressed to hear these words from Madeline, because she's got it exactly right. Marijuana is just a symptom of the issue. The real issue is, are we still sovereign human beings? That's what the American Revolution was all about. Marijuana is an iconic issue because it shows just how far the government has gone in overstepping its bounds in policing private behavior. and impinging on the whole idea of what America itself is all about. You know, before America, we were all property. We belonged to the king or the queen or the warlord or whoever had the most gunpowder in the valley. And if they said, hey, come in here, off with your head, there you went. There was nothing there. You had no rights. You were property. You belonged to whoever had the most gunpowder. But when our founding fathers decided that they were going to set this country up and wrote the Declaration of Independence, they recognized in essence that we were all created by our Creator and endowed with inalienable human rights. Among them, life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. For the first time, they gave each of us our sovereignty. For this was the first time any ruling party had ever conceded that the individual was a sovereign thing. And they wrote the Constitution to try to instill the legal system to protect it. And since that time, it has been in great peril by people who seek to subvert it and make slaves of us to their will. And believe you me, the man ain't racist. He doesn't care what color his slaves are. And the whole idea of having piss in a cup to hold a job in America is anathema to what America itself was built on. I've been at this. I was 24 years old and a milkman in 1971 when I decided I was grist for the mill. I was going to end up in prison or dead at an early age because I didn't understand the system. And as long as I was ignorant of the system, I was going to be a pawn in their game. So I decided I had to learn the system. And the best way to do that was to go to college and become an attorney. And if I was going to do that and put in all that work, I might as well become governor of Kentucky and change the marijuana laws and try to lift Kentucky back into prosperity. We were the world's largest producer of cannabis for over 100 years. We called it hemp. You know, people said, what's the difference, Gatewood? And I said, well, you know, hemp and marijuana are both cannabis in the same way that Danny DeVito and Dennis Rodman are both adult males. You know. Yeah, but Kentucky was the world's largest producer, so we ought to return to it and let our farmers back into the niche of producing energy to solve our energy problems instead of giving all this marijuana, giving all this money over to the oil-producing countries. You know, we calculated that if you could plant 7% of the U.S. agricultural land in hemp, you wouldn't have to import another drop of oil. But, you know, what's happened is a great synthetic subversion where those people who make synthetic products have used the criminal law to criminalize farmers from producing competitive natural products in both petrochemicals and pharmaceuticals. And a great deal of our problems today could be directly associated to the people I refer to as the petrochemical, pharmaceutical, military, industrial, transnational, corporate, fascist, elite son of a bitches who have never said the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America or to the republic for which it stands. They're not warm and fuzzy about us or our children or grandchildren, and they see the Constitution and the Bill of Rights as impediments to the implementation of a new world order and a global economy. And that's just where it's at. And they want to flatten the world to make us all, a global economy and to erase national boundaries. But, they can't afford to give every other human being on earth the same constitutional privileges and rights that we enjoy in recognition as sovereign human beings. So they're going to have to take ours away from us in order to make us a flat earth. I ain't going down without a fight. Yeah. So in 1983, like I said, I started my political campaign. I started getting up every day in 1971, so I've been at it 40 years. And I've run for governor several times, so I have a pretty good idea about what politics is all about. I gave the keynote address at the Reform Party National Convention back in 2000, and so I've been there. I've observed the politics, and after 40 years, I'd have to be pretty dumb not to have come up with at least one good idea in those 40 years. And I do tell the folks in this race right here, if I was ever going to lie to you, I would already have been elected, because But descriptively speaking, Kentucky suffers from electile dysfunction. What's happened is that both parties have their horns locked up like two bull elk fighting over territory, while the business of the people lays dead in the dust. And neither party can produce a candidate can disengage from the partisanship long enough to work with the other side to get the job done. And my running mate, who's a beautiful lady with 6 kids, 2 of them adopted, one of her natural children has special needs, so she knows where the rubber meets the road in those women and children's issues. She and I are running totally as independents, no party affiliation whatsoever. We don't want one. We don't want all that baggage. We don't want all that corruption. We don't want it. We don't want it. You keep it. That's just a monster to be fed once you get to the trough. You know, we're going to start returning any of the surpluses of the state back over to the people. But the first thing I'm going to do when I'm governor of the state of Kentucky, the minute I'm sworn into oath, is I'm going to have the commander of the National Guard land a helicopter in the front of the Capitol and bring me the keys to it. And that's the last time any one of those friggin' military helicopters is going to hover over the fields and gardens of the people of the state of Kentucky. This is America, not Afghanistan, and we're not an occupied territory, and we're not going to treat our citizens like we are one in the state of Kentucky. They got a pretty good idea that I mean it. I wrote an autobiography here not too long ago that I gave a copy to Madeline, and this is my autobiography. It's called The Last Free Man in America Meets the Synthetic Subversion, and that's me holding M60 on the front cover of it. And so they said, Galbraith, why are you holding that M60? I said, because I'm a serious man. You can get that order one off of my website at gatewood.com. But we have a hell of a chance of winning in November. Our primary is this coming Tuesday. We're not in the primary. We're totally independent. And what interest you may have in how I do out there in that race is that we're going to take a giant leap. We're going to take a giant leap. We're going to go all the way to find out whether America still has a pulse or not. Yeah. And we're going to do it constitutionally. The United States Constitution does not provide you the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That's in the Independence, Declaration of Independence. That's not law. So you don't officially have a right to that under federal law. But Kentucky has a constitution also, just like all the other states do. But it just so happens that Kentucky's constitution is the most pro-people constitution ever written. That our people back in 1890 got so tired of being raped by the railroad companies that they wrote a constitution that protected the people and kept corporations from running roughshod over everybody. And even now, that's beginning to fracture as our legislature keeps selling out to the folks that I call the petrochemical, pharmaceutical, military, industrial, transnational, corporate, fascist, elite son of a bitches. So what's going to happen is that the very first section of Kentucky's Constitution ensures that its citizens constitutionally are endowed with the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That's the number one section in Kentucky Constitution, so I feel obliged to make it the number one basis of policy for my relationship of government to the people in the state of Kentucky. I'm going to get it off of their backs. I'm going to take it out of the bedrooms and the bloodstreams and the brains and the bladders and the billfolds and the back pockets and the internet bulletin boards and put them back in the little box where they belong. I'm going to make government not a burden on the people. I think it's the role of government to uplift, enlighten, educate, and endow people with an appreciation of life, appreciation of the social compact, their civil duties, their civil responsibilities, and make sure that we address them as sovereign human beings, capable of making their own decisions. And we're going to get medical marijuana in the hands of every sick and dying person in the state of Kentucky. No permit needed. I'm going to take it out of the hands of the 10 and 13 and 14-year-olds who are doing it just for kicks. We're going to give them over to the old age homes, to all the old folks in the old age homes. Hey, increase the appetite, put a smile on their face, and think about the increased visitation by the young folks. Hey, let's go see Dad. So if we can do this, if I can win this, it's going to be bigger than Ventura. It'll be next to Obama's election, because there was an independent elected governor of Rhode Island in this past one, the first one elected in 150 years, but he had been a state senator. He had been a federal U.S. senator from the state of Rhode Island, so he had that base. Okay, but we'll be the first truly independent ticket ever to win governor in the state of Kentucky in the last 150 years. So we have I've got a website called gatewood.com. I'm a criminal defense attorney out of Lexington. I handle criminal cases, and I'd like to represent a lottery winner or two. If any of y'all know who you are out there, if you're a big dog and you're hanging out on millions, here's a good place to give me a fee and let me get on down the road on this campaign. If you can drop something, $5, $10, $20 in on gatewood.com, I appreciate you doing it. I'll send you a copy of my book. An ex-governor of the state of Kentucky said it was the best statement of freedom in America that he'd ever read. On the same day, an 18-year-old girl from the middle of the mountains called me, said she had read it twice previous week, and it was the #1 seller at Joseph Beth's, top independent bookstore in America, for 11 weeks. So I left out 100% of the sex and 80% of the drugs, but it's still a kick-ass read. Folks, I'm out here at the bequest of and the generosity of somebody that I'd certainly like to give a shout out to, and that's Mr. Paul Stanford here in Oregon. He was swell enough to let me appear on his program last night, and we're going to throw a little fundraiser over at the Clinton Street Theater. What time? At 3:30. So, to 5:30. So, I understand you all got some business to conduct at the meeting, and I hope I didn't take up too much of your time. Gatewood Galbraith, I appreciate your all's time and attention. Thank you so much.
This is Mr. Henry Ford in 1941 with Popular Mechanics magazine showing off his car made from hemp.
Well, come climb the mountain with me. Come see what we can see. Come climb the mountain with me, and then we will all be free. Some men are born to lead, some men have destiny. Some men plant the seed, and some men set it free.
Here we have 92,000 cars a day, thousands of people parking behind the FBI building, and they arrested us and they said, you cannot do this. I said, well, I'm not going to pay you a fine and go on probation. So I did 15 days in prison rather than give them a $5 fine.
Wow, that's kind of like telling Jesus you can't practice on Sunday.
It was a fine line. So come climb the mountain with me. Come see what we can see. Come climb the mountain with me, and then we will all be free.
Jack here and Ed Adair.
Well, hi guys.
They must be on the hemp tour. Are you on the hemp tour?
One man said we must hear. One man's voice was clear. One man heard the call. His vision speaks for all.
The #1 plant for paper, fiber, and fuel from the natural cycle had been outlawed. That somehow the synthetic cycle had won, when the #1 thing in the natural cycle could outproduce it and completely clean up the atmosphere. So my partner, Captain Ed, who had become my partner in 1973 and doing the politics of this, said we have to teach everybody in the world. So we went around and told everybody. But it was a slow process.
So come open your eyes with me and come see what you can see. It's time for the world to know the emperor wears no clothes. Come open your eyes with me It's time for you to see. It's time for the world to know that the emperor wears no clothes. It's time for the world to know that the emperor wears no clothes. That the emperor wears no clothes. That the emperor wears no clothes. The emperor wears no clothes.
In 1794, George Washington, our founding father, wrote to his gardener that he should, quote, make the most of the hemp seed and sow it everywhere, end quote. He wasn't alone. Thomas Jefferson grew hemp. Betsy Ross even made the first American flag out of hemp fiber. In fact, here's a flag right here that's made entirely from hemp. Today, U.S. retailers sell over $300 million worth of hemp-related goods. It's not just flags. Hemp is found in over 25,000 products, from lotions to soaps to protein bars to auto parts to fuel. Yet, somehow it's caught up in a completely unrelated drug war that prevents American farmers from growing this crop and forces us to import it from other countries. Our institutions of higher education can't even grow or cultivate hemp for research purposes. Mr. Speaker, my bipartisan amendment, which I'm offering with my good friends Mr. Thomas Massie and Earl Blumenauer, is simple. It would allow colleges and universities to grow and cultivate hemp for research purposes. Our amendment would only apply in states where hemp cultivation is already legal, such as my home state of Colorado. I recently had an exchange with the premier agriculture research university in my district, Colorado State University. This is an area that they want to get into, but they feel that they're prohibited, and their attorneys are telling them that unless we can make this change, they can't actually do research in what has great potential to be an important crop for Colorado. Mr. Speaker, let me be clear about something, because there's been some misleading information that's been put out there by the Drug Enforcement Agency. Hemp is not marijuana. I'm very disappointed to hear that the DEA is circulating talking points that claim that somehow hemp could be used as marijuana. At the concentration level specified in our amendment, it's physically impossible to use hemp as a drug. Let me emphasize that. It's physically impossible to use hemp as a drug. Voters in my home state of Colorado and across the country have made it clear that they believe industrial hemp is an agricultural commodity, not a drug. Our colleges and universities are the best in the world. This is a modest step to simply allow them to research the potential benefits, downsides, strains to grow of this important agricultural commodity. There's been technology in France that allows tracers to be put in to ensure that it doesn't get contaminated with anything that includes narcotics. There's lots of research that can be done, and this amendment is a very simple, pragmatic step to do it. I reserve the balance of my time.
Gentleman from Colorado reserves his time. For what purpose does the gentleman from Iowa rise?
I seek time in opposition.
Gentleman claims time in opposition. He's recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the gentleman's interest in the issue, but it's clear that the Agricultural Committee is not the committee of jurisdiction to be addressing the provisions of the Safe and Drug-Free Schools and Communities Act. And while some may consider the growth of hemp to be an agricultural endeavor, I think that there are many who feel quite differently. I would therefore oppose this amendment and urge the gentleman to seek a hearing on the issue within the appropriate committee. And I point also that one of the concerns that we have long had is that even though the gentleman says hemp is not marijuana, I don't know if one can tell the difference when it's planted row by row out in the field. And I know that's been a problem within my state when the residue of the leftover hemp from World War II became companions with the marijuana that was raised for a different purpose. So I'd reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman reserves his time. Or the gentleman from Minnesota asked the gentleman.
I wonder if the gentleman would yield.
Oh, I'd be happy to yield to the gentleman from Minnesota.
Well, I wanted to, on that, the University of North Dakota, one of their ag guys up there, came up with a way to splice a fluorescent gene into hemp, and North Dakota is a state where it's legal. So now the hemp that grows is fluorescent, and so you can clearly tell the difference between the hemp and the marijuana. So we have solved that problem through research.
Gentleman yields back to gentleman.
Reclaiming my time in amazement and reserving the balance.
The gentleman reserves his time. Gentleman from Colorado.
Again, this is, of course, germane. It was ruled and ordered by the Rules Committee. There's no issue with the Committee of Jurisdiction. I'd like to yield a minute to the co-sponsor of the amendment, the gentleman from Kentucky, Mr. Massey.
Gentleman from Kentucky is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to talk about some of the legal products that you can buy in the United States that are made with hemp. You can buy paper, clothes, rope, food, hundreds of products. Even car panels are made out of hemp. But the great tragedy is that we cannot grow hemp in Kentucky. We can't grow it anywhere in the United States, industrial hemp. So we have to import it. Where do we import it from? It comes from China. It comes from Canada. It comes from Europe. There are many, many uses for hemp. There are 30 countries on this globe that can grow hemp. In fact, I believe every industrialized country in the world grows hemp. Farmers in Kentucky grew hemp during World War II. Hemp was grown in large quantities in my state of Kentucky. Canvas and rope made from hemp helped with the war effort. So this is not about drugs. This is not about a drugs bill. This is about jobs. And for Kentucky farmers, we need the opportunity. We need the opportunity to compete globally in a global market, and we shouldn't be denied this outlet for another productive crop in Kentucky. Thank you, and I yield back to the gentleman from Colorado.
Time of the gentleman has expired. The gentleman from Iowa.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield myself as much time as I may consume.
The gentleman is recognized for as much time as he may consume.
And I also would like to remark, the gentleman from Colorado, it wasn't a surprise to me to see that Colorado is the state that has legalized marijuana. And so we also see the advocacy for this come from the same place.
Will the gentleman yield for a moment?
I would in a moment. Perhaps it's a coincidence, but I'll give you two things to respond to. And the other one is the reference to George Washington and Thomas Jefferson and Betsy Ross. Quite curious. And I don't think we advocate all the things that they might have participated in. 2 out of 3 of those would have fit within a category of an ownership that I don't really care to bring up today, even though today is Juneteenth. So I'd yield to the gentleman from Colorado.
In addition, Colorado did legalize recreational use of marijuana. It also separately has legalized industrial hemp. So there are a number of states, more states that have legalized industrial hemp that have done anything with regard to recreational use of marijuana or even medicinal use of marijuana. All very different issues, and states are taking them up as we speak.
And reclaiming my time, I recognize that the gentleman's amendment only applies to states that have already legalized it. And that's true. Nonetheless, I urge opposition to this amendment, Mr. Chairman, under the basis of this, that we haven't had a full hearing on this. We don't have a knowledge base behind it. We have each our own understanding of it. Mine is a debate that I have seen that's gone on for years, which is when you plant hemp alongside marijuana, you can't tell the difference. And so it opens up the door for the recreational agriculture of the marijuana drug. And for that reason alone, I oppose it, but I'd urge the gentleman to seek a hearing in the appropriate committee and urge the defeat of this amendment, and I've reserved the balance of my time.
The gentleman reserves his time. The gentleman from Colorado.
I'd like to inquire of the Chair how much time remains on both sides.
The gentleman has gentleman from Colorado has 1 1/2 minutes remaining. The gentleman from Iowa has 2 minutes remaining.
Okay, I yield 1 minute to the gentleman from Kentucky, Mr. Barr.
The gentleman from Kentucky is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We should explore the opportunity to produce industrial hemp here in the United States. This amendment would allow us to take a first step, carefully and deliberately. It will allow research institutions in our states, including my home state of Kentucky, to grow industrial hemp for the purpose of agricultural research, helping provide the information we need to consider future expansion of production. Our states deserve this opportunity to demonstrate the usefulness and viability of this crop for our farmers. Kentucky was once the nation's leading producer of industrial hemp. I encourage and support the passage of this amendment. I yield back.
The gentleman yields back to the gentleman from Colorado. The gentleman from Iowa.
Reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman reserves his time. The gentleman from Colorado.
I yield the remainder of the time to the gentleman from Oregon, Mr. Blumenauer.
The gentleman from Oregon is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, and I appreciate the leadership of my friend from Colorado and my friend from Kentucky in moving this forward. 19 states have passed pro-industrial hemp legislation. 9 states removing barriers to its production altogether. As has been pointed out, these products are perfectly legal in the United States, some $300 million a year, but it just has to be grown someplace else. It's outrageous that American farmers can't produce it, but what this amendment does is to simply permit the research opportunities for college and universities to grow and cultivate hemp for academic and in agricultural research purposes. If this amendment passes and we're able to do this research in agricultural colleges and universities, then we're not going to have stupid talking points coming from DEA, and we'll have misleading statements that are made. People will understand why other countries have been able to figure this out, and the United States will be able. Nobody, regardless of your position, should be opposed to allowing our research colleges and universities to be able to do a deep dive to be able to find out what's possible.
Prohibition of any kind does not stop illicit behavior, it drives it underground.
I really think that the majority of Republicans are classical liberals. I'm a classical liberal. Less government, best government.
Abraham Lincoln said that.
The laws against marijuana are causing more trouble and harm to our society than drug abuse itself.
I saw the utter failure after 20 years of police work of this policy in our society.
We just need to end the war on drugs as being totally ineffective and devastating and more of a problem than the drug problem itself.
Not once do I remember responding to a call of domestic violence and that person being under the influence of marijuana.
We need to measure the effectiveness of our nation's drug policy by harm reduction, not by how many people do we lock up.
It's never going to be legal to smoke pot, become impaired, get behind the wheel of a car. It's never going to be legal to smoke pot, become impaired, do harm to others. We need to stop arresting 1.8 million people a year in this country on drug-related crime. We now have 2.3 million people behind bars, highest incarceration rate of any country in the world. We're spending too much money.
My friends in Europe tell me a society has to make a choice: tolerate alternative lifestyles or build more prisons. And then they always follow up by saying, and you Americans have more people in prison than anybody else on the planet.
It's not drug abuse that is causing this devastation. It is prohibition.
Cannabis should not be illegal. Cannabis has been here for centuries, doing no harm and oftentimes good, often being used as a medicine throughout the centuries. But we have decided to make a war on drugs basically because by making a war on drugs, politicians can collect votes.
Since 1999, I have advocated legalizing marijuana. Control it, regulate it, tax it, make it like alcohol. In any category, marijuana is safer than alcohol.
And either we're inherently evil people that should be locked up, or there's something wrong with our legal system, and we've got to take the crime out of the equation when it comes to drug policy.
In our lifetimes, Russia is not going to recover from its monetary collapse. That's what's facing the United States. The good news is that we can fix this.
But I want to just put this out or think about real quickly is we want people to think about the realities of alternative energy, helping the land, helping the farmer, a green economy, alternative energy, all of the buzzwords that the political system keeps throwing at us but has no substance behind it. We want people to think and consider the identity and the realities of industrial hemp as an alternative energy solution to the problems that plague this planet. Hemp will help the farmer, it will save the farmer, it will create an environment, a fresh air environment that is healthy for this planet. Industrial hemp. We're not talking about marijuana. This is about industrial hemp. This is about helping the farmer and all of the things that hemp can do. And if nothing else, remember, it makes fresh oxygen for a carbon monoxide filling sky, and it does it on an annual basis. It's a renewable energy, and it sustains us. It was the largest cultivated planet. It was the largest cultivated crop on this planet up until the 1880s. Then around the discovery of oil, because hemp could do everything that oil can do and more, and do it safely without pesticides, without attacking and destroying the land. They outlawed marijuana a long time ago, but it was the hemp that they were after because the hemp could sustain an alternative economy. Thank you. So please think about it. Think about it. Think about it and do what makes sense. All right. this day our daily yeses. Yes to life. Yes to living. Yes to caring. Yes to giving. Yes to creating. Yes to thinking. Yes to clarity. Yes to balance. Yes to being. Yes to seeing. Yes to yeses. Give us this day our daily yeses. Chaos, confusions. Confusions, chaos. Desperations, despairs. Despairs, desperations. Program, belief. Belief, program. Manipulated minds. Minds manipulated. Reactions, behaviors. Behaviors, reactions. Fearful thinking. Thinking fearful. Inside. Outside. Altering thought. Thought altering. Forgetting medicine. Medicine forgetting. Clear thinking. Thinking clear. Coherent. Coherence. Coherency. Coherent. Prayers given. Given prayers. Peace and love. Love and peace. Created realities. Realities created. Whatever sees. Sees whatever. We do. Do we? Give us this day our daily yeses. Yes to yeses. Yes to seeing. Yes to being. Yes to balance. Yes to clarity. Yes to thinking. Yes to creating. Yes to giving. Yes to caring. Yes to living. Yes to life. Give us this day our daily yeses.
Thanks.
Well, what is cannabis? Cannabis, of course, is a medicine.
I think it's important to say that no medication is going to work for everybody all the time.
It's a specific for migraines, it's a specific for seizures.
The take on the plant is that it's symbiotic with the human.
If you can get something that's natural, that has literally zero side effects.
It works as a
almost a ubiquitous inhibitor of a lot of systems in the brain.
The science is absolutely clear. The pharmaceuticalization of cannabis is just beyond the horizon.
I think it's easier for men to come out and say they support it because women have a lot more on the line. You know, if they're mothers, then they have their kids on the line.
So I tried it, and at first, it freaked me out. I had a few panic attacks.
We know that cannabis can prevent Alzheimer's, and if it can reduce all these ailments and keep your stress level low, that adds years to your life before you're even sick.
And so the petrochemical, pharmaceutical, military, industrial, transnational, corporate fascist elite SOBs vilified the cannabis plant.
We're all grown up now. We're not in the closet anymore. We don't give a fuck what you think. We smoke marijuana.
But once you just let go with it and just be, it does so many things.
Consciousness opens the doors to perception, expands consciousness, and puts you in a receptive state.
I like to say when I give lectures, I start off by saying I smoke pot and I like it a lot.
Part of what we're doing with Oregon NORML is trying to maximize the Oregon Medical Marijuana Act and try to help the patients that truly need the medicine.
America's ready for a change in the marijuana laws. We're reached critical mass to change this critical mass.
Let's hope we can all live together in peace and harmony, love, and legalize marijuana, for God's sake.
Hi, I'm Willie Nelson, and I urge you to support the Oregon Cannabis Tax Act to regulate marijuana and restore industrial hemp. This initiative will end adult marijuana prohibition and let our criminal justice officers focus limited resources on real criminals and not on marijuana users like me. OCTA will also allow farmers to grow hemp for fuel, fiber, and food to create jobs and help our economy. Please support OCTA. Thank you.
They fought it for 75 years, but today the federal government announced they will not sue to block recreational marijuana use in Washington and Colorado. News Channel 8's Catherine Cook is live in Vancouver, where a lot of folks are reacting. Catherine?
And Joe, a lot of them are thrilled, especially those here at Mary Jane's House of Glass. They've been waiting for months to hear how the feds would react to the new law. Others can't believe the feds are letting go.
Oh, jumping up and down. Yep. It was very exciting news.
News that the feds will not challenge Washington's new recreational marijuana law. Danielle Burton manages Mary Jane's House of Glass in Vancouver. She herself is a medical marijuana user, but in November, voters here cleared the way for all adults to partake.
You know, for people that aren't able to use medicinally for whatever reason, you know, this is opening many doors for lots of people.
Was it too short?
But until today, supporters like Rick Kahn say the Department of Justice had been casting a shadow over the new law, making it tough to understand.
And then when they said that the marijuana was legal, but you couldn't grow it, you couldn't smoke it, you couldn't be out in public with it, it was just like, really, what's it going to do, drop out of the sky? So, I mean, it was just kind of a big joke at first, but now it looks like it's going through, so people are going to be happy.
But not everyone. Sisters Robin and Cheryl fear how legalizing marijuana could alter the world their kids grow up in.
You know, I'm very concerned about it because my husband works in the chemical dependency field, and what he has seen is that marijuana oftentimes is the gateway to much harder drugs for our young people.
While the DOJ has loosened the reins on Washington and Colorado, which also legalized marijuana, it's asking those states to enforce 8 key areas while regulating the drug. They include keeping marijuana away from kids, preventing criminals from profiting from it, and making sure the drug doesn't leave the state. Back live in Vancouver, I spoke with those who are trying to legalize recreational marijuana in Oregon. They call today's announcement monumental and hope it bodes well for their efforts. Back to you.
Thank you, Catherine.
There is a Canadian Seed Growing Association.
Yeah, but
and
they're
they
growing
have been
it for
producing
food
their
and
own
oil.
foundation seed. They've been producing foundation, and what you normally have in seed development is you have breeder seed, you have foundation seed, you have registered seed and certified seed. Those 4 classes. So there's a 4-year period in the evolution of any certified seed. The National Seed Protection Act provides the legal framework for handling the genetics of seeds inside of the United States. And it's consistent with international treaties. Now, the Canadian regulations that they're operating by go far beyond the restrictions of the Seed Variety Protection Act. Because under the Seed Protection Act, a farmer can save seed enough to plant their own acreage of a tier one seeds. There are many heirloom seeds that there is no restriction on it. I have a lot to learn about the nature of those laws, and those are the rules I believe we're going by. Colorado's going to be doing it its own way. Colorado is not Canada. And
you're from Colorado.
I'm from Colorado.
Yeah.
And we value our autonomy and our independence greatly. And we've gotten advice from some of the best minds in the world. And this is a very, very exciting time.
Now this is the whole reason marijuana is illegal. Yep. This is hemp seed oil with a hemp wick. And it is an illuminant. Hemp was an original illuminant before they used whale oil, before they were using petroleum. Hemp seed oil was one of the first illuminants used by humanity to light the first lamps. And this is the whole reason it's illegal, because you can pour this hemp oil right into any diesel engine, turn the key, and drive it. Hemp oil produces 3 times more seed oil than any other plant on the planet. It also produces 3 times more fiber. And here's some hemp twine. This is produced in China. Hemp twine from China. So the main reason marijuana is illegal is because of hemp oil and hemp fiber. And marijuana laws were created to stop the oil companies from competing with hemp fiber, with the introduction of new machinery that made hemp fuel and fiber much less expensive and much less expensive to process. Much as the cotton gin had made cotton much cheaper to process 100 years before. This new machinery, the decorticator, had made hemp fiber much cheaper. So the fuel and fiber companies put together a misinformation campaign we know as Reefer Madness, and came up with this name marijuana based on racist lies, as the name marijuana proves. I mean, it's based on anti-Hispanic and people of color racist propaganda that was prevalent in the 20s and 30s. And so here is the whole reason that marijuana is illegal. It has nothing to do with drugs. Drugs are a smokescreen. It's really about fuel and fiber.
Exactly.
And there's we're going to do this every week, folks.
Well, and
I just love the hemp candle idea. So this is our flame of freedom that we're going to be talking about each and every show.
Well, here's a little song that you might get along with, all about a natural seed growing wild by the side of the roadway. It's nature's a wonderful weed. Been around so long, it's hard to tell why anyone would think it's new. Love it or hate it, however you relate it, I'll leave that up to you. But isn't that righteous? And isn't that good enough? Ain't that the way it ought to be? Isn't that righteous? Isn't that good enough? Righteous is good enough for me. History's locked in a cardboard box and it's hard to take a look, with sidetracked frills and fantasies all written all over the book. Everybody tells you what to think and they've got their reasons why. You gotta pick reality up by the scruff of the neck and look it right in the eye. And isn't that righteous? Isn't that good enough? Ain't that the way it ought to be? Isn't that righteous? And isn't that good enough? Righteous is good enough for me. Now the same people that are spreading the fear, the same people that scare me the most. You know, some of them look like they just as soon like they're hanging from a lamppost. They talk about what it does to your brain. Well, I just have to react, cause Hitler never touched this stuff, and that's an actual fact. And isn't that righteous? Isn't that good enough? Ain't that the way it ought to be? Isn't that righteous? And isn't that good enough? Righteous is good enough for me. George George Washington was the father of our country, and he had a hemp plantation. Betsy Ross used it to make the flag that flew above the baby nation. They wrote their declarations on paper from that same hemp fiber press, and I don't know what they smoked when they were taking a break, but I got a pretty good guess. And isn't that righteous? Isn't that good enough? Ain't that the way it ought to be? Isn't that righteous? Isn't that good enough? Righteous is good enough for me. Uptight, it just might make you smile. Use a seed oil in your engine, it'll lubricate the miles. Glaucoma and chemotherapy, they say it smooths out the track. So next time you meet a cancer patient, ask them what they think about that. Isn't that righteous? Isn't that good enough? Ain't that the way it ought to be? Isn't that righteous? And isn't that good enough? Righteous is good enough for me. I don't know why some people get so upset when you say to legalize it. They'd rather build more jails, arrest more people, and spread more crazy lies. It's like talking to a brick wall. You know, they just don't get the facts. I think they ought to try a little of that Betsy Ross. It just might help them relax. And isn't that righteous? Isn't that good enough? Ain't that the way it ought to be? Isn't that righteous? And isn't that good enough? Righteous is good enough for me. So I'll be on my way now. Guess I've taken just about enough of your time. I know there's a lot of people out there that don't like my state of mind, but I got mine and you got yours. We give what we can take. So next time I need a breather, well, I might just take a little smoke break. And isn't that righteous? Isn't that good enough? Ain't that the way it ought to be? Isn't that righteous? Isn't that good enough? Righteous is good enough for me. Isn't that righteous? And isn't that good enough? Ain't that the way it ought to be? Isn't that righteous? And isn't that good enough? Righteous is good enough for me.
And the question of hemp, the question of cannabis, is the most vivid illustration of how this government has overstepped its bounds in policing the private behavior of citizens. When they told us we couldn't plant a hemp seed in the ground, they severed us from the natural cycle. That is what they seek to do. I call it the synthetic subversion, where they want to replace all the natural products on earth that used to be grown out of God's earth and God's seed, and replace them with synthetic products and knocked our farmer out of the agrarian society and the agrarian market and made the ghost towns of our small cities and villages across this country. We need to rediscover a cash crop, one that will allow our farmers to go back to the land, one that will allow our farmers to compete with the petrochemical pipelines. You plant U.S. 7% agricultural land in hemp, you would have to import another drop of oil. We can replace the spills in the Gulf. We can replace the environmental catastrophe that the petroleum pipelines have cast upon Mother Earth, and instead let our farmers grow hemp as a fuel crop. In 1991, Willie Nelson and I poured hemp oil into my Mercedes diesel and drove it across Kentucky in my bid for governor. That's why he started his biofuel plant. Listen, folks, you all have been handed a torch. Jack Hare, bless his soul, passed away. I'm getting old up here. You know, we cannot carry this ball much longer. You have to become educated. You have to learn the truth. You have to reach out there and grab the responsibility of maintaining your freedom. Every generation must rewin its own freedoms. And those very sacrifices, right up to the very last second I've been talking to you, made on your behalf, cannot continue anymore. What really counts is your all's commitment to what sacrifices you're willing to make in the future to maintain your freedom. And it's right there in front of you. I encourage you to learn the law. I encourage you to learn the political process. I encourage you to reach out there and take responsibility of your own freedom. Live your life like a warrior. God bless you all. Thanks for having me out here in Seattle.
Okay, Casper, we are done with another song. Mr. John Cornette is standing by.
Right.
You've got incredible radio shows at timeforhemp.com. I did your plug.
Thank you.
You can find out more about our petition drive. Just come to hemp.org, hemp.org. You got enough for 3 minutes of music, John?
Yeah, sure. We'll just do it.
Okay, and we've got lots of pretty flower pictures, too. Thank you for watching, and help us restore hemp.
All right, this is one of my favorite songs. I wrote this for Mr. Bill Appel back there and his wife Red, and I wrote it with my girl Jan Sue in mind, who will be back tomorrow. She will be back. I heard about that
in Southern Oregon on Wednesday. She was driving down the road. She stops and backs up. It was quite the coincidence.
Was she aiming for anybody when she was backing up?
For 12,000 years, she's healed our lives. For 1,000 more, she will brave the fight. She's my Joan of Arc, reaches through the flames, says, "Come to me, I can heal your pain." She's my Mary Jane, she's my Mary Jane, she's my Mary Jane, she's my Mary Jane. She comes to me, gives me sight, she holds me up in the heat of the fight. She's my Rosa Parks, holds her seat. She's amazing grace, she is oh so sweet. Saved from hell in the fire.